On the anniversary, I saw a video on a citywide platform. It showed my wife and her male assistant in a hotel room. In the video, my wife was wearing a bath towel that reached just below her breasts. Her long, snow-white legs were on display. She was letting Michael help her put on her stockings. The caption of the video read, "Hello, sister. Wonderful. Sister, I'm willing to be a slave for my sister." I shared the video in my circle of friends with a smile, and I left a comment. "She really is very attractive. Very attractive. I hope you have a good time tonight." Michael said to me with a smile on the phone, "Brother, that was just a joke." My wife snatched the phone away from me and said angrily, "What's wrong with you? You actually pushed me towards another man. I really didn't know you had such an offensive hobby." I hung up the phone directly. Since I no longer cared, I just let it go. This 8-year unrequited love, I decided to end it. When Olivia returned home exhausted, it had been a week. At that time, I was engrossed in a Switch gaming adventure. Before, she always said I had no ambition, and all I knew was playing games, as if I had not yet grown up. So, I hadn't touched the game console for 3 whole years. She wore high heels, which made a tapping sound on the wooden floor. As she walked quickly over to me. Suddenly, she pressed the pause button. With a dissatisfied tone, she said, "I know you only know how to play games. You play all day long. You are so childish." She placed a beautiful gift box on the table. Inside was a delicate fountain pen. "Michael asked me to give you this fountain pen. He said he had made a joke before that was a bit too far. He was worried that you would mind. He came to apologize." I picked up the fountain pen and looked at it carefully. I smiled and said, "Not bad. It's quite tasteful." Olivia's face suddenly fell. Her eyes were unhappy. She took out her phone. She looked through her contacts. She handed it to me. "Since you accepted the gift, you should call and say thank you and apologize. Don't let him feel like he did something wrong. You're almost 30. Can you be more stable? You're far worse than Michael. I really don't understand. How can you not even understand the most basic human relationships?" After returning from a business trip, Olivia not only failed to apologize for missing our date, but instead criticized me for Michael, her white knight. My heart slowly grew cold. Seeing that I didn't react at all, Olivia became even more angry. She pushed me hard. "Are you deaf? Did you not hear what I said?" She was so caught up in criticizing me that she didn't notice that her hand had touched my old scar. It was an accident many years ago. I was protecting her and got hurt. It left a scar. It was a serious injury. Even if it had healed, it would always have hurt. Now she pushed me. It hurt so much that I went pale. Cold sweat broke out on my forehead. I clenched my teeth. My face crumpled up. She was shocked. Her tone softened. "I'll get you some medicine to put on it," she said. She hurriedly went to look for the family medicine chest. My heart suddenly sank. Just now, I kept staring at her hands on her white, delicate fingers. The wedding ring was gone. Did she take it off when she was with Michael? Did she forget to put it on when she came home? It seems I don't weigh much in her heart. She doesn't even bother to pretend to be nice to me. Olivia looked around for a while. She muttered to herself with a puzzled expression, "That's strange. I remember putting it here." It seems as if she suddenly remembered something. Her face suddenly becomes a little stiff. "Michael just posted a photo of himself accidentally scalding himself in the circle of friends." Olivia tenderly helped him treat the wound. She had already delivered the things to Michael. If it were in the past, I would definitely keep asking until I get to the bottom of it. But now, I no longer have the heart to ask. I endure the pain and say with a fake calm, "It's fine. I'll go buy the medicine myself. Don't move if it hurts." "I'll go." She hadn't finished. The phone on the table started ringing urgently. We both looked at the screen. Mikey was clearly written on the caller ID. "Mikey, what's up?" Olivia glanced at me and walked to the corner to answer the phone. She lowered her voice, but I could still hear Michael crying. "Liv, the client forced me to drink a whole bottle of wine. I really can't take it anymore. Anyone who bullies my people." Olivia raised her voice. "No cooperation. Send me your location. I'll come get you on the phone." Michael said with a sob, "You just got back. He'll be angry. Who does he think he is?" Olivia gave me a sideways glance and sneered. "He can't control me after that." She grabbed her coat and was about to go out. I quickly stood up and blocked her way. "The keys." I put the car keys in her hand. "Drive fast. Don't let Mikey be too scared." She looked at the keys blankly. It took her a while to stammer out a sentence. "I'll bring you medicine after I'm done." The security door behind her slammed shut. I smiled helplessly. I ordered takeout on my phone, instead of waiting for her to come back. I'd rather wait for the takeout to arrive. 20 minutes later, I treated my wound myself. My body didn't hurt as much, but the pain in my heart just won't stop. Michael just posted a status update on WeChat. Between the lines, he's showing off the difficulties he's encountered and how the beautiful CEO gave up the partnership for him. The photo shows them having dinner together at a fancy restaurant. In the photo, the two are smiling particularly happily. The candlelight illuminates their faces. The whole scene is both warm and a little bit amorous, seeing Olivia's eyes full of affection and happiness, and my heart suddenly ached like it had been stabbed. I remembered when the company was first established. I did a lot of the business myself. I drank until I had a stomach bleed. This laid a solid foundation for the company's development. But Olivia ignored my efforts at the time. Once I went to sign a contract, the client deliberately made things difficult for me. I drank until I vomited, but I still couldn't sign it. When I got home, I vomited all over the floor. Olivia covered her nose and said with disgust, "You're nothing but trouble. You can't even handle a contract, and you have the nerve to complain. You should ask yourself why you're not successful. It's because you're not capable. You don't know how to talk to people, and you don't work hard enough. Are you trying to be pathetic? Just so I feel sorry for you, you're so manipulative." After that, she turned around and went into her room, leaving me alone on the cold floor. She didn't even give me a drink all night. The next day, I had a high fever from catching a cold, but she just said she was busy at work. She didn't even say hello. Later, she invited me to dinner and gave me a present. That was the end of it. Now, every time I see Michael's Facebook feed, I remember the way Olivia looked at me that day, full of disgust after the heartache. I gradually became numb. 8 years of memories played like a movie in my head. I don't know how long it's been. Suddenly, I feel very calm. I pick up my phone. I make a call. "Find me a reliable lawyer. I'm getting a divorce." My tone is calm. The next morning, Olivia gently taps my face with her hand to wake me up. She stands there, looking down at me. With a cold tone, she says, "Get up. Let's go have breakfast." I rub my bleary eyes and look at her. She really hadn't gone home last night. For some reason, she came to see me early in the morning for breakfast. She stared straight at me. Her eyes were firm, thinking about our impending divorce. I didn't need to argue with her at this moment. I gathered my strength. I reluctantly got up, tidied up a bit, and left the house with her. After getting into the car, it seemed like she suddenly remembered something. She pretended to be unconcerned and said to me, "Let me take you to the hospital to get your wound treated first. It's fine, it doesn't hurt that much." She turned her head and looked at me. She said in a relaxed tone, "Yes, it's been so long, it should have healed by now." My nose got a little bit sore. I turned my head and looked out the window. Yes, it's been a long time. That day, a car came speeding towards Olivia. I quickly pushed her away, but I was hit by the car instead. After several days of rescue, I finally managed to save my life, but I still have some health problems. Many parts of my body hurt from time to time. I don't want Olivia to worry, and I don't want her to feel guilty. So every time I feel pain and break into a cold sweat, I hold back and don't tell her. But if she really cares about me, she will know. That client was particularly difficult last night, so I didn't get back. "You should understand," I answered expressionlessly and calmly. "I understand. Work comes first. After all, it's your people who have suffered." The car came to an abrupt stop. It sounded like Olivia had slammed on the brakes. I felt a tremor run through my body. My phone fell to the floor at my feet. I sensed Olivia looking at me with eager eyes, but I didn't pay it any mind. I bent down to pick up my phone. Unexpectedly, I felt a square condom. In the past, I would have lost my temper and interrogated Olivia, but I felt nothing now. I casually put the item in the storage compartment. When I looked up, I saw Olivia's slightly embarrassed gaze. She stammered, It's probably something my client accidentally left behind when Mikey picked them up in my car. I almost laughed at this lame excuse, but I just nodded slightly. My expression was calm. I didn't say a word. Olivia invited me to have Cantonese dim sum. As we walked out of the restaurant, we happened to meet a few elegant young ladies from wealthy families. They stood in front of Olivia and looked at her curiously. Olivia asked, "Who are you?" The girls asked excitedly. "You must be Mikey's beautiful boss. Are you two dating?" Olivia glanced at me, hesitated for a moment, and nodded. Well, I seemed to have guessed that she would answer like that, so I was very calm. "And this one is?" The girls stared at me. Olivia quickly said, "He's my brother." The girls finally left, satisfied. Before they left, they wished her and Mikey would always be together. Back in the car, Olivia said to me, "James, don't take those words to heart. Mikey is helping me with my work now. Those rich girls like his looks. We often attend events together. He occasionally posts videos to his circle of friends. It's all for work. Don't think too much about it." I wasn't interested in her explanation. I just mumbled something in response. "I understand. Work comes first." The car accident had injured several organs in my body. My chest suddenly started to ache. The pain made cold sweat break out on my forehead. I hadn't even spoken to Olivia yet. Her phone rang. It was Michael. "Liv, I have an exhibition to attend today, but I can't get a taxi. Can you come and give me a lift? I've been looking forward to this exhibition for a long time. It would be a shame if I missed it." Olivia's tone softened as she heard Michael's frustrated voice. "I'll be right there." As soon as the phone had been hung up, she said to herself, "Go and give Mikey a lift." If she had looked at me a little longer, she would have noticed that I was sweating with pain. "No, you take me to the nearest hospital first. I can't stand the pain anymore." Olivia's voice dropped. With obvious displeasure, "James, what are you playing at? I've brought you here. What more do you want? I shouldn't have been nice to you. Otherwise you'll just get worse and worse." She pulled over to the side of the road and said angrily, "Either you come with me, or you get out of the car now. Don't expect me not to go and find Mikey. This time it's not just my chest that hurts. My heart hurts a lot too." Okay, I was in agony, but I could take a taxi by myself than stay here and argue with her. I pulled open the car door, but she slammed it shut again. The door hit me. It made me feel even worse. She shouted, "James, if you get out of the car, I'll divorce you." I stared at her slowly. "I've already told my lawyer to prepare the divorce papers. All you have to do is sign them." Olivia froze. She couldn't believe it and asked, "You planned this divorce a long time ago, didn't you?" "Yes," I said. "You can't expect me to forgive you." She said this and then pushed me out of the car. Before the door had closed properly, she slammed on the accelerator. My clothes got caught in the door. The car dragged me along for 10 meters before it stopped. Passers-by screamed. My clothes were torn off. I fell to the ground. I was bleeding. Olivia's car roared like a beast. It drove off quickly when I woke up. I found myself lying in a hospital bed. Next to me stood my best friend Chris and Olivia's parents. Olivia's father stared at the phone that had been disconnected. He said angrily, "I've really spoiled her. Now she won't even answer my calls." Olivia's mother covered her face and kept crying. Chris looked at them calmly and said slowly, "If you can't find anyone, call the police. She's intentionally causing harm." "No, no, no, don't call the police." Olivia's mother became anxious at hearing this. She grabbed my hand. Her voice was full of tears. "James, Olivia is your wife. She's also the CEO of the company. You can't let her have a criminal record." Chris's eyes flashed with anger. He was about to say something, but the doctor called him out of the room. Ever since this happened in the hospital room, Olivia's parents and I looked at each other in silence. After a while, I said, "Thank you for your concern. I've decided to divorce Olivia." When they heard this, they froze. They looked at each other, then turned to me. "James, don't be rash. Your relationship has been difficult over the years. Olivia has been spoiled since she was little. She is a bit headstrong. You need to be more tolerant with her. She has a good heart. Give her some time. She'll come around." I used to think so too. So I tolerated her without any principles. I hoped she would change. But in the end, all I got was a body full of scars. I picked up my phone and flipped through it. Then I turned the screen towards them. You can't find Olivia, right? I'll show you where she is. Michael's friends list had been updated. The latest post was a 9-square photo of him and someone at an art exhibition. In the photo, they were very close. They were smiling really happily. They looked like a couple in love. After looking at the photo, Olivia's parents' faces immediately turned very ugly. Olivia's father walked over to the window and made a phone call. As he spoke, it sounded as if he was holding back a great deal of anger. He told his assistant to go and bring Olivia. I didn't think that was necessary, but Olivia's mother had already taken my hand and whispered, "James, don't worry. Olivia has done wrong. We will teach her a good lesson. We really like you. We hope you can give Olivia a chance. She will definitely understand." I didn't say anything. Slowly, I closed my eyes. I was so tired. Over the years, I have forgiven Olivia countless times, but instead of reflecting and improving, she has become more and more outrageous. Time has passed. The ward door suddenly opened. "James, you are a big man. Stop pretending to be a green tea. You wanted me to come to you, and you even tricked my parents into cooperating with you. You're really something. I thought we agreed to get a divorce. Bring me the divorce papers. I'll sign them right away." Olivia angrily threw the flowers she was holding at me. Olivia's father and mother called out at the same time, but it was already too late. "Mom and Dad, don't play these childish games with James. He's just..." As soon as she saw me and froze, the bouquet smashed into me. I tried hard to shake it off, but I kept coughing, as if I were coughing up my lungs. Olivia's mother couldn't help but scold. "Olivia, what are you doing? Have you forgotten that James is allergic to flowers?" She stared at the sudden redness of my face and hands. Immediately looking panicked, she shook her head blankly and said, "No, it's not that. I'm not sure." In fact, she wasn't unaware. She just had her mind on Michael. Chris happened to be walking in from outside. He saw the scene. He was usually calm and collected, but his face showed unmistakable anger. He picked up the report in his hand and slammed it at Olivia. "Miss Olivia, it's really James's bad luck to be with you. Think about it. He risked his life to save you. Now he's relapsing. His internal organs are ruptured and bleeding. You have dragged him along with you without a shred of humanity. He is covered in wounds, big and small. Are you even human?" Olivia crouches down. She picks up the report cards one by one. Her hands tremble as she reads the contents. She doesn't say anything for a long time. There seemed to be many complex emotions in her eyes. While I was in the hospital, I kept pressuring her to get a divorce every day, but she always said she was too busy at work. She kept putting it off. She didn't even talk to me seriously about getting a divorce. I couldn't take it anymore, so I called her. "No matter how busy you are, you can't be too busy to sign a piece of paper. Michael can call you at any time, and you can rush over to him immediately. Why can't you spare 2 minutes to sign the agreement?" Olivia stuttered for a long time without making herself clear. Finally, she explained that she didn't sign the divorce agreement because it contained something unreasonable. That was why she refused to sign it. The unreasonable thing was that apart from the normal property distribution, and give me an extra 31 million. She said that I was implying that I still had a place for her in my heart. I suddenly felt very speechless. How could this be associated with the idea that I still had a place for her in my heart? Later, I didn't ask for the 4,000 yuan. Have you forgotten? At the time, you insisted on proving yourself in front of your parents, so you went off and started your own business. That money was all the inheritance my parents left me. I gave it all to you. Now you're playing on homophonies with me. Olivia Group is a major local company. Olivia is full of confidence. She thinks she can make a career for herself too. He fell out with his family. He took the money I gave him and started a business. The initial cooperation and business were all brought in by me with great difficulty. The subsequent development also could not do without the support of Olivia Group, both overtly and covertly. I sighed. "Continue, forget it. I don't want that money, just sign it quickly." She panicked. With an urgent tone, she said, "James, I will always remember your kindness and help. I have never forgotten. I will give you all my assets. Please don't divorce me, okay? I don't want to fight anymore." But it was so hard to get her to sign. Didn't you ask me to come up with a divorce agreement and say that I would sign it right away? Why are you backing out now?" Olivia's voice was a little choked up. "Go on. Those were just angry words. How could you take them seriously? What couple doesn't argue?" I sighed helplessly. "So were those things you said before about me being insensitive and not romantic, putting on a suit and acting like an insurance salesman, and saying that if it wasn't for me saving you, you'd never have married me? Were those just angry words too?" Olivia's voice trembled slightly. She answered, "Yes, they were all angry words." I sneered a little, with a hint of disdain. At that time, Michael had just returned from abroad. He arranged for Olivia to take me out to dinner. Chris had specially chosen a handmade, custom-made suit for me. After I put it on, he kept praising me. He said I was like a natural-born aristocratic young master. When we arrived at the restaurant, I saw them sitting together from afar. I sat down across from them like a guest. Michael smiled and held out his hand. "James, Olivia has often mentioned you. Seeing you today, you really are handsome. What a fine young man. He looks so pretentious in a suit. Usually he dresses casually. I'm embarrassed to take him out." Olivia gave me a disgusted look. Her words made my heart feel cold. Michael saw the atmosphere was not right. He quickly tried to smooth things over. "Olivia, don't say that. James is able to marry you. There must be something special about him. If I hadn't left the country in the first place." He paused deliberately and smiled at me. I couldn't help but think about the past. "I hope James doesn't mind." After he finished speaking, he brought the cut steak to Olivia. His actions were very gentlemanly. This made the two of them look even more like a couple. When they spoke, Olivia would unconsciously move closer to him. They were so close that it looked like she was about to throw herself into his arms. I felt like a third wheel. I watched them talk and laugh. Later, I accidentally saw their chat history. Michael said, "Long time no see, you're actually married. You must really love James." Olivia said, "If it weren't for the fact that he almost died saving my life. My parents would have forced me to marry him. Otherwise, I would never have married. Really, he seems quite stable and reliable, unlike me, who returned home after failing in a foreign investment." Michael continued, "But what's the point? He's so boring. He doesn't understand romance at all. When I read these notes, my heart pounds. My eyes fill with tears. I can't help but ask Olivia, 'Do you not love me at all?' She is not the least bit remorseful. She coldly replies, 'You talk about love all day long. Aren't you sick of it? You're not going to divorce me anyway. Think about it. Would you really want to? You're lucky to have me. Don't ask for so much.' Olivia always says I'm childish, not motivated enough, lacks maturity and stability. But in comparison, her selfishness and disregard for other people's feelings make her seem more like an immature child. In the past, when she treated me this way, I always comforted myself internally, thinking that she just hadn't grown up yet and didn't know how to love someone. I've just realized now how stupid I was. I decided to move out of the house. Olivia stopped me from packing my bags. She said, 'You stay home. I'm leaving.' Without waiting for me to say anything, she started packing. She said, 'I have to go out of town to discuss a business deal. If you still want a divorce when I get back, I won't stand in your way.' 10 days later, she called to ask why I wasn't home. I looked across the street at her and calmly said, 'Let's go to that cafe we used to go to. Come over here.' After hanging up the phone, I watched Michael's complex expression with interest. These days, he can't get in touch with Olivia, and he doesn't know where she is. And he actually came to my house to make trouble. Later, I told the property management not to let him in the gate of the community, but he kept waiting at the gate of the community and followed me here. He stared at me defiantly. Why? I tried my best to find her, but I couldn't get in touch with her. Instead, she took the initiative to call you. I took a sip of coffee and smiled. Maybe she can't bear to leave me. Why don't you go ask her later?" Michael frowned. The veins on his forehead pulsed faintly. He said coldly to James, "James, you're just a latecomer. What are you so proud of? When she liked me, you had nothing to do with it. If I hadn't gone abroad, I would have been the one with her." He said with clenched teeth, "She's reluctant to leave you now. She's just not happy. She's just not happy to be left behind by someone like you. You have no idea how awesome Bai Yu Guang is." I laughed. That made him angry. I heard you went abroad because you cheated on the college entrance exam. You had no choice but to go abroad, right? You can't even brag about that, since you like her so much. Then later on, you can persuade her for me. Tell her to sign the papers quickly. That way, you two can be together. You must never be apart. That's also a contribution to society. Michael slammed his fist down on the table in anger. He rushed over to hit me. I stepped aside and punched him instead. He yelled angrily and tried to charge at me. At that moment, a shout of reprimand came from not far away. Michael, have you had enough? Olivia ran over, panting, and glared fiercely at Michael. Liv, you're here at last. James hit me. I shrugged. I said lightly, didn't you start it? You couldn't beat him up. Liv, I didn't. Michael wanted to say more. That's enough. Olivia shouted angrily, her eyes fixed on Michael. You've got to stop this nonsense. Can't you see that I'm going to apologize to James right now? Michael trembled with anger. He gave me a fierce look. Then he stormed off. After he had gone, Olivia hurriedly explained to me, honey, listen to me. There really is nothing between us. I shook my head. I took out the divorce papers and asked her to sign them. She didn't expect me to have them with me. Her eyes quickly reddened. I did have feelings for him before, but that was because I was young and immature. There really is nothing between us now. I don't want to argue anymore, but I couldn't help but retort. You stayed in the same room on Valentine's Day, and you wore a halter-neck bathrobe. Isn't that crossing the line? You were called away on the phone. You didn't consider your husband's feelings at all. Isn't that going too far? Feeding each other and leaning on each other's arms. Isn't that crossing the line? What do you think is crossing the line? She didn't know what to say. She was about to speak. I waved impatiently. You came to see me. If it's not about the divorce, don't say anything more. She stood up and stopped me and said, James, don't go yet. I still have something to tell you. Olivia unfolded a list and showed it to me. I've been meeting up with your old school friends over the past few days. I've written down all the things you told them you wanted to do. I didn't treat you well in the past. Now I want to make it up to you. I want to help you do all the things you've always wanted to do. Let's get these things done first. Then you can decide whether you want to separate from me or not. I glanced at the list. It was full of almost 100 wishes. Some of the wishes were particularly extravagant. They would probably cost a lot of money and effort. Olivia's eyes were full of determination. It looked as if she really intended to make them come true, but I no longer wanted to go through with it. Olivia, you've forgotten to write down the most important wish of my life. I interrupted. She froze for a moment. She quickly took out her pen and said seriously, tell me. I'll do my best to help you fulfill it. I looked at her and said calmly, marry you. Her eyes suddenly narrowed. The hand holding the pen kept shaking. I continued, I did my best to fulfill this wish, but I found that it wasn't as wonderful as I thought. I now have a new wish. I want to ask you to help me fulfill it. Olivia looked at me nervously and expectantly and asked, what is it? I answered, divorce you. I finished. Her eyes became a little absent-minded. After a long while, she still didn't sign the agreement. I bought a small courtyard, moved out of Olivia's villa. In the days that followed, she kept asking me, are you really willing to part with her? I have been so good to her. I can spoil and tolerate her indefinitely. How can I just stop loving her? She kept badgering me. I got a bit annoyed, thinking about the bad things she had said about me to Michael before. I said, you are getting old. You will soon become old and ugly. I don't like women like that. She trembled with anger, but she couldn't find anything to say in reply. Olivia kept dragging her feet about signing the divorce papers. I had no choice. I had to hire a lawyer to help me sue for divorce, but the process dragged on and on. Before I knew it, half a year had passed. When we met again, we were in court. Olivia was accompanied by Michael. I didn't realize he was so persistent. He never gave up. People who don't know the truth might think that this is true love. But I heard that he had gambling debts abroad. He had to desperately find a rich woman. Otherwise, he might be chased for debts one day. I noticed that Olivia's belly was a little bulging. It seems that she could not resist the fierce pursuit of Bai Yueguang. In the end, she stayed with him. Olivia still looked cold and indifferent, but the way she looked at me had more inexplicable meaning. I didn't bother to figure out those things. I didn't want to bother. The divorce went smoothly. The assets were divided fairly and reasonably. The money I have now is enough to let me live a comfortable and carefree life. When I was leaving, I suddenly received a text message from an unfamiliar number. James, you didn't expect it, did you? Liv finally chose me. I am the white moonlight in her heart. You are nothing but a waste of space who tied her down by saving her life. I looked up. I saw Michael not far away, grinning at me smugly. I picked up my phone and replied, I wish you both happiness. Stay together forever. 3 months passed. I was at home waiting for Chris. When I heard a knock at the door, I went to open it. But there was a stranger standing there. He had a short haircut. His eyes were fierce. I felt a chill when I looked into his eyes. I asked cautiously, Who are you? He said calmly, Don't be afraid. I won't hurt you. Then he told me his purpose. He was the one who hit Olivia with his car back then. But I happened to save her at that time. If he hadn't braked in time, I probably wouldn't have made it to the ambulance. I was shocked after hearing that, because I always thought it was an accident. When I woke up, Olivia's family told me that everything had been taken care of. I never imagined that it was a premeditated murder. Then you are, the person said. My name is David. I'm your senior, David. He is a legend at our university, handsome, versatile. He is recognized as the school's most handsome guy. Now, the charisma he had is gone, David told me. Olivia used to pursue him like crazy. This made him, who had never been in love before, quickly agree. But after confirming the relationship, he discovered that Olivia had a boyfriend she had been dating for several years. He was so angry that he wanted to leave. But Olivia's sweet words made him reluctant to leave. David was in a long internal struggle. His mind gradually became distorted. He finally lost control of his emotions. He wanted to kill Olivia and commit suicide. Hearing this, I was even more shocked. I had completely missed it. She had cheated on me a long time ago. It really was like that. Once you start, there will be countless times. What made me even more sad was that Olivia's parents knew about this, but hid it from me, and pretended to care about me. It's really infuriating. David asked me how Olivia was doing recently. I told him she had reunited with her old lover, and she was now pregnant. David was silent for a while, and sneered. I really didn't expect it. In the end, she went back to him. That damned woman. I said, Don't be sad. Leaving people who don't cherish you will make your future better. This is actually a good thing. He looked at me, as if he were talking to himself. You're able to move on. That's great. I was about to say something, but Chris arrived. They looked at each other. David turned around and left. Chris asked me, Who was that guy? He looked pretty fierce. I shrugged, without saying much. A week later, I saw a video, a couple arguing on the street. A man chased them with a knife. After injuring the two, the man stabbed himself in the heart. His face showed a look of relief. The couple in the video were Olivia and Michael. They seemed to be having a heated argument. Michael even knelt on the ground. He kept pleading. They were so caught up in their argument that they didn't notice a man with a knife coming around the corner. David took each step steadily. His eyes were fixed on the two people. He moved with determination. Each blow struck the vital spot. After the final blow to his heart, he finally got his revenge.